This chapter introduces the array list. The array list is a way to store multiple values under the same name, and that provides lots of efficiencies in your programming. And to demonstrate how it works, I thought I'd show you what you're missing when you don't use an array list or some type of data structure to store related values. And then I'll contrast that with the same example using an array list so that you can see the difference. Let's say we're a teacher and we want to store grades so that we can compute the average on a test. To make it simple, I'm only going to keep track of 3 grades, but in real terms, you're probably talking more like 20 or 30 grades. But to save time, I'm only going to store 3, but you'll get the idea. So if I want to keep track of grades, first of all, we need a scanner class because we're going to enter these grades from the keyboard. So first of all, I need some variables. So I create the variables. Then I'm going to need some scanner objects. I'll tell you what, that's going to be kind of difficult. Let's not use scanner object for this particular example, just because I'm going to have so many scanner objects. It'll take too long. We'll input the grades directly. Now I want to compute the average, so I also need a total. So I'll put that in with my grades. Then I also need an average variable to store the average. The first thing I have to do is assign some grades to my variables. So we'll do that. Then I have to compute the average. The first thing I have to do is get the total. So I get the total. Then I can compute the average to get the average. Now, again, that doesn't look all that difficult when we're only talking 3 grades, but multiply that by 10 for a more typical class size, and you see a big problem. Well, an easier way to do this is to use something called an array list. An array list is a container object that lets you store values, and you can store any kind of value in an array list. So let me demonstrate how to use the array list with this example. First thing we have to do is we have to import the class into our program. So it's java.util ArrayList. You see how I spell it with a capital L there. Let's comment out this other code so it doesn't get in our way, but I want to keep it there so we can see it. But I'll tell you what, let's work above it so you can see the screen better. I still need an average variable and a total variable, so we'll create those. Now to declare my array list, I have to do something kind of strange. I have to tell it what type of data is going to be in there. So to do that, I have to use the less than sign, followed by the data type, which is integer, followed by the greater than sign, followed by the name of an array list, followed by a constructor that is formed like so. So that looks a little daunting, but it's really not that difficult. All we're doing is we're saying we want an array list of type integer, and we're going to call it grades, and please construct a new one for me like so. Now I'm ready to put the data into the array list. We do that using a method called add. Understand that if this was a large data set, I'd be using a loop and interactive input, regardless of how much trouble the scanner object would cause. But because we're only doing 3, I'll keep it simple and just do it directly. So the add method puts data into the array list. Think of the array list like a divided box, and add puts a new item into a compartment in that box. So 78 goes into the first compartment, 84 goes into the second compartment, and 90 goes into the third compartment. Now I'm ready to compute the total, and I can do that using a for loop. So I can write for int I equals 0, and I'll explain what that's going to mean in just a second. I less than grades.size. Array lists have a method that keeps track of how many items are in it, and it's called size. And I can call it whenever I want to know how many items are in my array list. And then I want to increment I by 1. And then what I want to do is I want to add each item from the array list into the total. So I use a method called get with I, the value of I. Each item in an array list has a position. The positions start at 0. Just like string positioning starts at 0, array list positioning starts at 0. So the first item in the array list is at position 0. So that's why my for loop starts at 0. As I move through, I want to go through position 0, 1, and 2. The size is 3, but the position numbers are 0, 1, and 2. So that's why I'm going I less than size. I want I to go through 2, but not through 3. That would take me beyond the end of the array list, and I don't want to do that. So then to compute the average, I can use size for that. And that's always a good idea. Always let the computer do the computing for you. So rather than trying to keep track of how many grades I have so that I can compute the average correctly, I just put the grades in an array list and let the array list keep track of how many items they are. And then we can write out the average. Average is average. All right, let's compile by first saving. Then JavaC, Cap 11, Part 1, .java. And once again, I forgot to initialize the total. So let's fix that real quick. Clear the screen. Compile again. That time it's perfect. And the average is 84. That's the exact middle number, so that is correct. So this chapter is going to introduce you to the array list and all the different methods and techniques we can use to use it. So in the next lesson, we're going to talk about how to initialize array lists.